Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Tim's News Explosion, the 200th edition on this Easter Monday, the 21st of April 2025, where we've had it confirmed by the Vatican that Pope Francis has died at the age of 88. It looks like he was on the mend from his bout of pneumonia, which saw him hospitalized for an extensive period. We saw him out and about over the Easter period, but it looks like he was on the mend, but sadly, no. His last video was him meeting US Vice President J.D. Vance, who's a Catholic. And so there's already the Vice President's haters claiming that he killed the Pope, like they claimed that the former British Prime Minister Liz Truss killed Queen Elizabeth II, because that was the last photo of her commissioning Liz Truss to form a government in her name, which lasted barely 6 weeks. We are live on the Wilms Front YouTube, the Wilms Front Rumble, and on my X account. Hello to everyone in the live chat. Senator Slayer, Naughty Design. Hope you all had a good Easter long weekend and stayed safe. It was not the road toll that was the sad news over the Easter long weekend. There were 6 drownings because of extreme wind and waves, which, well, there are a lot of new Australians who don't know how to swim, and that keeps sadly the lifeguards quite busy over the summer, but we saw some people drown after being swept up from the shore. Now it is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where we finally have the factual proof that Dan Andrews' COVID lockdown curfew of 2020. Remember the state of disaster on August 2, 2020. The curfew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., which went for 2 months. And then, of course, was revived in 2021 because Dan Andrews didn't like it how people were drinking alcohol outdoors and trying to just have some enjoyment under his draconian lockdown. So his Victorian Health Department fought for 5 years to keep the public from learning what pretty much we knew, that the curfew wasn't based on health advice, and this was pursued through all the way to VCAT, to the Court of Appeal in Victoria, by Liberal Victorian Upper House MLC David Davis. He hasn't done much throughout his parliamentary career, but this was definitely something that he will be remembered for, being so tenacious to get these documents. So it was published by News Corp. And so the press conference that Dan Andrews announcing the state of disaster on the Sunday, 2nd of August, it was around about 5 p.m. There was another round of panic buying that occurred throughout that day. Remember, there was also the 5-kilometre radius around your property, only being allowed out once a day for exercise and to get food. So it was a captain's pick by, or if not Dan Andrews, by his crisis committee of cabinet, the Gang of Eight, of which there's only one left from that cabinet, which is the current Premier, Jacinta Allen. So this email from the, now there's so many, obviously Brett Sutton, who was Dan's chief health officer. He was the bureaucrat that fronted the daily press conferences, but there are a whole bunch of other health bureaucrats behind the scenes. So the damning conclusive one is document 34 between the Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton, and the Health Department's Public Health Commander, Dr. Finn Romaz. I think that's how you say it. What's a Public Health Commander? How are they different from the Chief Health Officer? So this is the email up here. So he saw on the press conference that Dan Andrews announced a curfew, and so it's news to them. So he said that having been off for 2 days and having missed key conversations, supposedly there's a public health emergency and you've got some days off. And considering I've not seen any specific written assessment of the requirement of the curfew, I'm satisfied that as the Premier and Cabinet's clear indication that the action of curfew is required at the current time. And so basically it says, I'm not going to read out the whole email. It says, in this way, the action of issuing a curfew is a mirror of the state of disaster and is not occurring on public health advice, but a decision taken by Cabinet announced today as it is an important step in the response. On those terms, the Cabinet has formed the view, announced that view. Do you agree that a direction can be issued by me, including a curfew? And so Brett Sutton replied that your assessment is correct as I understand it. As a public health direction mirroring the curfew already decided in the state of disaster, I am supportive of you authorising it as such. There appears to be merit in limiting opportunities for transmission, perhaps in high-risk cohorts. So the current Victorian Health Minister, Mary Ann Thomas, was asked by Simon Love of Sky News, was it the correct decision of your department to fight the public release of this for 5 years? And she said, the buck stops with my department because it was a decision of my department not to release the document in the first instance. And she was asked if the wrong decisions. She said the motivation was to protect the decision-making conversations between senior people at the time. I'm going to back my department in. So Real Versace says, do you think this was as fake as the vaccine lies? Well, Dan Andrews also said that the mandatory COVID vaccines for all workers who worked outside of the home was based on health advice. We didn't see that health advice. Again, that was, it continued on. It wasn't just the curfew, but we were told it was all based on health advice, yet we never saw the health advice. How much of it was a captain's pick? And we know that Dan Andrews was polling the public to see how much support there was for his rules. Christian, mother of 7, says, do you also think if they lied about this, then the vaccine could have been lied about also? Well, we were told, remember, at the beginning of 2021, that the vaccine stopped transmission and stopped you getting the virus. Though apparently, if somebody didn't get the vaccine and they got the virus, then they could transmit it to you, and then your vaccine wouldn't work. I remember that was the logic there. So there has been, and I included the the meme that I saw on X the other day that I mean, there's not much hope. Many of us have that Dan Andrews and his gang of 8 and Brett Sutton will ever be held to account. COVID criminals curfew lie. And now Dan Andrews refused to comment when he was asked by News Corp about the fact that he misled the public. And now a lot of all of the Freedom parties are promising a proper federal royal commission into the COVID-19 response, including the lockdowns, vaccine mandates, including the decisions made by the states. We only had a inquiry behind closed doors by Anthony Albanese's 3 handpicked experts. Now, going into our election coverage, so we are at less than 2 weeks until election day, which is Saturday the 3rd of May. So early voting starts tomorrow. So that is when the first votes will be cast. Though I've been very clear to all of you that you should vote on the election day, because if you vote early, then it's just sitting in a pile in an early voting centre for 2 weeks, and then they're transported somewhere. They're not counted there and there. Apparently it's way more complex for them to count early votes than it is on the day. On the day at the polling booth, they count it at the polling booth where you cast your vote that night. So that means that if most people did what used to be the case 30 plus years ago and voted on the day, we'd get a much quicker result. Now, last week we had the ABC leaders debate, which was at the ABC's new Western Sydney studio in Parramatta. So they opened it to make it look like they're going to be more in tune with the people who are living out in the western suburbs. The ABC headquarters is in the inner city suburb of Ultimo, which is next to the University of Technology, Sydney, and right next to Chinatown. I wonder if they'll have, because it's based at Southbank, the ABC in Melbourne, whether they'll have a new headquarters in the western suburbs of Melbourne, say around Melton or Deer Park, or in the southeast in, say, Dandenong. I will wait with bated breath. But now, at the beginning of the debate, the ABC they showed a number of video questions. They went to locations around Australia and said, what would you like to ask the leaders? And now they weren't asked these weren't the questions asked of Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton. David Spears, the moderator, host of ABC Insider, said they've informed my questions. And a lot of people who are watching the debate, there was no studio audience either. There was a pro-Palestine protest out the front. I didn't see George Jemison holding a Australian workers' protest outside there as well. So all it was three men in a room, and it basically was a extended ABC Insiders interview with David Spears just asking the leaders, well, the same question, and both Anthony Albanese and Peter Dutton stuck to the talking points. In the first Sky News People's Forum, Anthony Albanese stuck exclusively to the talking points. Peter Dutton was a lot more, his answers were a lot more organic, and also his interactions with the people who asked the questions. Peter Dutton, he'd been told by his clown advisors to not just stick to the talking points, but don't go in too hard. You don't want to feed this thug persona. Remember, that's what Malcolm Turnbull has called him. But the debate is the only time that Peter Dutton will get a chance to call out Labor's lies, where the Albanese's Labor's campaign is full of lies. They've expanded Mediscare to claim that a Dutton government would defund the urgent care clinics that they've set up. All that the Dutton coalitionists said that we didn't agree to Labor's proposed expansion of the urgent care clinics, which are meant to be bulk billed to take pressure off emergency departments. I saw a news article which said there's actually no proof of that. So that is the only difference in health policy between the two parties. Well, the coalition, they're promising to bring back the 20 free psychologist visits, which the Albanese government cut to 10. But going back to this debate, the key moments where David Spears pressed Anthony Albanese when energy prices would decline, but he kept saying, renewables are the cheapest form of power. And also denied that that his government commissioned modelling from Treasury about what changes to negative gearing, which allows property investors to write off losses on investment properties against their tax, and capital gains tax, which is there's a 50% discount on the taxable capital gain, excluding the family home, because obviously a lot of capital assets, they appreciate simply because of inflation. That's why that 50% discount is there. And Anthony Albanese denied it, even though it was confirmed by Jim Chalmers last year. But apparently it wasn't modelling. It was advice from Treasury. And this is where Peter Dutton said that Albanese has a tricky relationship with the truth. So that was Anthony Albanese's the weakest moments. But then when Peter Dutton was asked, did he believe in climate change? He said, "Well, I'm not a scientist." I'm glad at least when he didn't answer the definition of a moon question, he didn't do a Ketanji Jackson Brown and say, "I'm not a biologist." And also, David Spears asked them whether they trusted Donald Trump, and Anthony Albanese said yes, and Peter Dutton said, "I hadn't met him, so I don't know," which basically sums up how far Peter Dutton has run from any association, comparison, anything to do with Donald Trump, MAGA. And of course, there was all this hysteria because Jacinta Price said last weekend in Perth that we're going to make Australia great again. And now also discussed during the debate was the April surprise, which it was not China, it was Russia, Russia, Russia. So defense website Janus reported that Russia had asked Indonesia if it could put Russian long-range aircraft at the Indonesian Air Force Base in West Papua. And now, when this broke the day before the debate, Richard Marles, the defense minister, was scrambling to contact his Indonesian counterpart, and so the Indonesian government, led by President Prabowo Subianto, said that there's not going to be a Russian air base in West Papua. It's not going to happen. So that was a good reassurance, not just for the Albanese government, but for Australians. Now, Indonesia is a non-aligned country. It was true, as Janice reported, that there was a meeting between the Russian and Indonesian defense ministers. There were joint military exercises. Indonesia is a sovereign state. But Peter Dutton and the opposition claimed that the Albanese government had been caught off guard about this meeting. Well, they're not bugging the phones of the Indonesian presidents like they did when they were last in government. Remember, Tony Abbott had to clean up that mess when it was revealed that the Rudd Gillard governments had bugged the Indonesian president's Bambang Yudhoyono's phone. Although the Albanese government, they thought they were off the hook of being blindsided when Peter Dutton actually said that President Subianto had said that there was going to be a Russian air base in West Papua, when he had said no such thing. And so he had to concede in the debate, I made a mistake. And so you had Penny Wong and Richard Marles and all the other Labor ministers say this proves that Peter Dutton is too loose, shoots from the hip on national security, foreign affairs. He can't be trusted. Brett Norman says, this is classic Russian troll to Australia, saying they put peacekeepers in Ukraine. Well, the thing is that and it hasn't been used in a federal election campaign for nearly 60 years. Russians under the bed. The reason why the fear of the Russians in our region can be used as a fear campaign is because there aren't that many Russians living in Australia who are citizens who can vote, unlike Chinese Australians. And this is why Peter Dutton has had his shadow defence minister, Andrew Hastie, in witness protection. Apparently, he will be by Peter Dutton's side to announce their defence policy in the lead up to Anzac Day on Friday. So I think I mentioned last week that Andrew Hastie on his campaign socials is campaigning on local issues, doesn't have the Liberal branding in his core flutes, maybe because the Liberal brand in Western Australia is also, so it was proven at the Western Australian state election is still very much doesn't resonate with the West Australian public, but they've also put, well, there's two reasons that they've put Andrew Hastie in witness protection, because of what he said in 2018, that the DNA of combat frontline soldiers is male, and that's what they disendorsed Benjamin Britten in Whitlam for saying, and also because they are worried he could say something against the CCP, which could offend Chinese voters. and they want to win the seat of TNE back from Labor's Sam Lim, and they've picked a Chinaman there, Howard Ong. So to win that seat, they've basically put in the freezer their shadow defense minister. And now there are two more debates that will occur before election day. So tomorrow night on Channel 9, their leaders debate, which will be moderated by current affair host Alison Langton. She can't do a worse job than Sarah Arbo did 3 years ago, where she totally lost control and Anthony Albanese and Scott Morrison were talking over the top of each other. Now, despite Scott Morrison's unpopularity being the main factor why Anthony Albanese was elected Prime Minister, even though he had a shocker of the campaign, and of course, Scott Morrison's standing took an even greater hit when it was revealed all those secret ministries he swore himself into. But he's been invited back on the campaign trail. He was campaigning for Zahid Safir, the Liberal Afghani Muslim candidate for Bruce. So why would you bring back your most recent unpopular Prime Minister to campaign for you? Again, that's another perplexing thing that the Liberal campaign has done. And also, going back to the Channel 9 debate, there will also be questions from Channel 9's political editor, Charles Croucher, 2GB's, the Deb Knight, and also Phil Curry from the Australian Financial Review, which is one of the 9 newspapers. And then on Channel 7, their leaders' debate will be moderated by Mark Riley. It won't be moderated by Tim Lester. And I would hope that Peter Dutton would have made clear to Channel 7 that he shouldn't be the moderator after his question last week to Peter Dutton, basically asking him, are you responsible for your father's heart attack because he was worried about you on the campaign trail? What a disgusting question. And then there'll be a 7 News Spotlight special afterwards. I remember they did, like they had in pubs all around Australia and the major capital cities, people watching, and they asked them afterwards, the real life pub test. And now, again, this will be journalists asking our leaders questions. And most of the questions our leaders get during this campaign are by journalists. And this is because both the Liberal and Labor campaigns have campaign buses where they arrange for journalists from all of the mainstream media to be on the campaign bus. So Sky News, Channel 7, Channel 9 have a reporter on the Labor campaign bus and also a reporter on the Liberal campaign bus. And because of security, they're apparently not told the journalists where they're going in case they leak it. And then there's, heaven forbid, some member of the public will turn up. So it's like a magical mystery tour. And Anthony Albanese this week again refused to answer questions from two members of the public when he was asked in a hotel lobby. But the first was by Harrison McLean of Australian Melbourne Freedom Rally, and also by Daniel Jones, who is Avi Yemeni's bodyguard. And Anthony Albanese's minders just basically shoo them away, and Albo just fobs them off and walks away.
The people, have you still got Mr. Albanese, I have a question for you on behalf of hundreds of thousands of Australians around the country.
How's it going? I'm Fiona.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Hey.
There are hundreds of thousands of
Hey,
Australians
how's it
around the
going?
country
What's your
who are
name?
unable to afford housing.
Hey,
And I have a
thanks so
question
much.
for you, Mr. Albanese. When are you going to put Australians
that's enough,
first?
Thanks, mate. That's enough.
Albanese, when are you going to put Australians first?
No, that's enough. Thanks, mate. That's enough. Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
Sorry, the second question from Daniel Jones is not playing properly. So this was called a security breach because at a public hotel, members of the public attempted to ask the Prime Minister a question. So that's what's called a security breach these days, where it's been a great part of Australian politics, political campaigns, that members of the public can ask our leaders questions, and they are different from the climate activists who just shout and hold signs, who are not interested in asking questions. Brett Norman says, when you see Daniel with Avi, it looks like a dad taking his son to school. Yeah, Danny's a big bloke, and that's why Avi has hired him. He's got a burly appearance, and also I should mention Danny is a really good bloke. I have had many pleasant interactions with him over the years. He teaches self-defense through his. I'm gonna make sure I get this right to give his organisation a shout out. So it is Tactical Force Combatives. So you can follow that on. It's on a Telegram channel, so t.me/Tactical Force Combatives there. So that is a service that he provides to like-minded people in the freedom community. Obviously, there is the Melbourne Freedom Rally this weekend. No More Uni Party in Melbourne's Flagstaff Gardens, which Harrison McLean will definitely be there. I don't know if Avi Yemeni or Daniel Jones will be there as well, but it should be a good meet up there. And of course, I'll have another reminder at the end of the show. And now we had last week both Albanese and Dutton release their housing policies, which were absolutely trashed by economists, whether they be independent, conservative, nationalist, or libertarian. So Peter Dutton's was to have tax deductible mortgage repayments capped at $650,000 for first home buyers buying new properties for the first 5 years. Also have their $50,000 for super for first home buyers, but it has to be paid back once you paid off your mortgage. Then there is Labor's, which is the government's going to build 100,000 homes, and also there is going to be the 5% deposit where the government will go guarantee. Now, I couldn't believe last week that Peter Dutton's campaign, his advisors, thought it'd be a good idea for his son Harry to front a media conference to talk about how hard it is to get a deposit from a home. And Peter Dutton has a property portfolio, and so clearly, and Peter Dutton ended up admitting this, that Harry would get help from the Bank of mum and dad, which is how a lot of young Australians, Gen Y, Gen Z, that's the only way that they can get their foot in the door in the property market. And we're told by our leaders that it's a supply side issue, but this graph was released by the Financial Times in the UK. New homes built per 1,000 people in the past decade. Switzerland's number one with 70 homes per 1,000 people, and Australia is not far behind. So we are ahead of Canada, we are ahead of New Zealand, France, the UK, the US, Germany, Ireland, Spain, and Portugal. So it is a demand side issue mainly, and that is because of the millions of migrants that the Albanese government has allowed in over its first term, and which it will continue to allow in its second term. Peter Dutton has said that he'll cut permanent migration by 40,000 for first couple of years, then he ratcheted it back up, and he's promised 100,000 cut in net overseas migration, which is, that's still better than what the Albanese government is promising, which is just, we've got a target for less net overseas migration, which they haven't met. And now earlier this year on Q&A, Father Morgan Cox, who helped out the Unshackled when we were first starting by connecting us with conservative-friendly Facebook groups to promote our content. Morgan is keen to come on Wilms front to tell his story, and because he told the politicians that he and his young family are facing homelessness. He's had his rent increased by $10,000 per year, and he's got no luck finding a cheaper place. What is available, there's dozens of people lined up, lots of them are immigrants, and they have plenty more money than I can possibly get. And Australia is it's becoming the place to migrate to for millionaires. A lot of them are actually fleeing the UK and coming here. And Peter Dutton has actually said to a Chinese migration agent that he wants to bring back the golden ticket that, well, Trump has brought in the gold card, buy yourself a visa with $5 million. And he also told back Peter Dutton, that grandmother who questioned him about foreigners being able to buy new property, and he said, "Oh, well, that's so if enough foreigners buy a property off the apartments off the plan, then that means the apartments can be built." That was his argument for allowing foreigners to continue to buy apartments, units, townhouses. So Morgan's the response he got from the health minister, Mark Butler, who was the most senior Albanese government minister there, just said that, "Oh, we've been working hard to get migration levels down to something we think the country can manage." So sort of said, "Oh, we're working on it." And now Morgan has decided to take his campaign, well, his battle, which is a battle for many Australians. We're seeing a lot of Australians living out of caravans and cars, not being able to feed their kids enough that they would like. And so Morgan brought his caravan out to the front of Anthony Albanese's Copacabana clifftop mansion that he bought for his fiancée, Jodie Hayden.
I'm here at Albo's $4.5 million mansion. We've just driven down his $100 million road. We're here on behalf of 3.5 million other Australians who are struggling, who are in poverty, facing homelessness. All we want is to be heard. All we want is for the politicians to listen to us. Everybody deserves a home, Albo. If you're watching this, if you could go to costoflivingcasualties.com.au and just tell us your story. We'd love to hear it, and we'd love to pass it on to some of those politicians and just let them know how we're really struggling. And I just hope that we can make this country a better place to live.
Now, the Australian Federal Police, they were called, and they said that Morgan can keep the caravan there, but he has to block out Albo's name because I think it's apparently doxing. But certainly, Morgan's campaign, it's about reducing or turning off the insane levels of demand. And I couldn't believe that David Spears, on ABC Insider, said, to build more homes, we'll need to import more migrants. Yeah, but they want to stay here as well. So it's a constant game of catch up. And of course, and David Spears seems to be lobbying for negative gearing and capital gains changes. That's just tinkering around the edges. That would just drive up rents, doesn't increase the housing stock. Now, the absolute dead shit housing policy comes from Purple Pingers, Jordan Vanderberg. That's his real name. It's not Vanderlam. That's his married name. So his, of course, approach is that apparently it's all the rich people who are hoarding all the homes, and heaps of them are empty. And so he's published a list, or he's got a public list and a private list. And one of them was that he published online belonged to a woman. She inherited it from her father. She was wanting to renovate it so she could live in it herself. And because Jordan Vanderlam published it on his website, it was broken into, ransacked, the locks changed, and when he was confronted on the project, Jordan Vanderlam said, "Oh yeah, I would apologize to her." Clearly, did it ever cross his mind that organized criminals, cat burglars, would use his list to just ransack properties? I mean, this is how much of a scumbag he is. He's got the most punchable face. Hello, Tristan Davies. Good to see you there. Now, let's conclude our federal election coverage by looking at the most recent polls. Now, of course, polls come and polls go, but the only poll that matters is on election day. And yes, we all remember that the polls were wrong in the 2019 federal election. That was the only time that they were wrong. Last week, the two main nationwide polls that we got, the Redbridge poll, that was just a marginal seat tracker, but that showed that two-party preferred in the 20 most marginals, Labor was ahead 54.5 to the coalition 45.5, which seemed a bit off. Now, this was a YouGov poll late last week, so the ALP and coalition tied 33% primary each. So 1/3 of voters aren't going to vote for the two majors. The Greens on 13%, One Nation on 7%. The Trumpet of Patriots 2%, Independents 9%, and others 3%. So that's two-party preferred, ALP 53 to the LNP 47. The news poll was better news for Peter Dutton. With 2 weeks to go, he didn't go backwards. It's still two-party preferred 52-48. Labor's on a primary vote of 34. It actually went up. Coalition on 35, the Greens on 12, others on 12, One Nation on 7. And now, a lot of pollsters and Liberal campaigners have commented that the decline in the Liberal primary vote has gone to the right-wing and freedom minor parties and doesn't always come back to the Liberals. And one of the reasons that this is not going to happen, there is going to be a bit of leakage from the minor parties. It's not going to all come back to the Liberals, is because the Trumpet of Patriots in their published how to vote cards, and now it seems there's been some late breaking news that, according to Trumpet of Patriots and Clive Palmer, that their how to vote cards have been printed. There's been a misprint, a sabotage. Is that why was it a misprint sabotage online? And you even had Ralph Barbette confirm that Trumpet of Patriots had done this stupid strategy to preference the incumbent member in all 150 seats last, which includes Peter Dutton. They placed him last in his seat of Dixon. So a Trumpet of Patriots has put the Greens, Labor and the Teal candidate ahead of Peter Dutton, dead last in the seat of Bradfield and Flinders, preferencing the Teal independent first. And in the Senate, preferencing the Jackie Lambie network highly, second in Tasmania. So Lee Hansen is running for One Nation. One Nation is not on their Senate how to vote card at all. So Trumpet of Patriots, if they do pull that 2%, then it could mean that Jackie Lambie, that crazy woman, could get re-elected, and we don't get even though she's Pauline Hanson's daughter, Lee Hansen, she has an excellent CV. She's worked for Tasmanian Hydro for many years, worked in the education system as an academic. She's really got a lot of expertise, so can stand on her own 2 feet. So I'm not a Tasmanian voter, but certainly Lee Hansen in the Senate would be way better than Jackie Lambie. And it led to today the Trumpet of Patriots candidate for Flinders, Jason Smart, withdrawing from the campaign, and said that he was actually given an undertaking by Clive Palmer and the Trumpet of Patriots that if I ran as a candidate for them, that the Teal, Labor, Greens candidate would be last on the how to vote card. Only agreed to run on that basis. So he said that he's now assisting the One Nation candidate in Flinders instead. And now, this is all from 6 News. So 6 News, they, in both of these articles, they quote the election analyst, Dr. Kevin Bonham, who is quite very left-wing. A majority of voters do not follow how to vote cards. The rate in the House of Representatives is around 45% for the majors, usually 15% or less for anyone else. And in the Senate, it's even less, 20 to 30 for majors, 10 or so for the Greens, and a few percent for others. Now, in the House of Representatives, you have to number every box. In the Senate, you are asked to preference at least 1 to 6, so you can fill out more boxes or every box. And it's important that because there are a lot of Liberal shilling accounts, and I've noticed that some patriotic X accounts are now shilling for the Liberals, such as Don't You Worry About That, which has a picture of Joe Bjelke-Petersen in it, shilling for Dutton and the Liberals. So is Jack the Aussie. I wonder if they've been paid by somebody to shill for Dutton and the Liberals. But there will be a lot of Liberal shills who say, don't vote for a minor party because you'll be helping the Labor Party be re-elected, which is only the case if you put Labor before Liberal. Now, the Trumpet of Patriots preference strategy, which would see which would probably at the current status of the polls would cement Albanese not just retaining government but retaining in majority, got the endorsement of Joel Davis of the National Socialist Network, who wrote for the notice that the Liberals should go last because traitors are worse than enemies. That's a long time National Socialist mantra. And it's also based on the idea of democratic acceleration, that you want a worse government to accelerate the decline. You want to punish the right-wing party so they learn to be properly embrace nationalism, decent cuts to immigration, not suck up to migrants. This discounts the fact that the Liberals could conclude the absolutely wrong lessons from what looks to be an election loss. They might claim, well, we weren't left wing enough. That was our problem. And also the fact that it still means that Albanese and Labor govern for the next 3 years. I mean, in my opinion, a Dutton government would be slightly less crap than an Albanese government. Well, there would be significantly less crap when it came to energy policy, and also when it comes to policies around patriotism, and also rolling back the Aboriginal superstructure, reopening our national parks again for all Australians, not just shutting them off for Aboriginal only access. Hello to Auditing Australia. Which event are you going to go to this weekend, Auditing Australia? Because I've already mentioned the No More Uni Party Australian Melbourne Freedom Rally at the Flagstaff Gardens, and then there is also the Women Will Speak rally, which is at Parliament House, starting at the same time. Both start at midday Melbourne time, and that one, of course, there is already the trans-Tifa counter-protest, trans-liberation counter-protest, drown out the TERF fascists. TERF and white nationalist networks are mobilising again for reactionary Women Will Speak rally at Victorian Parliament. We reject their oppressive ideology and we are taken to the streets to drown them out. We organise against colonial capitalist agenda, fascism and trans-liberalism alike, as all are killing us. So trans-liberalism, what on earth is that? I've never heard of that, and apparently that kills trans people as well. Auditing Australia says Flagstaff Gardens a rally waste of time. I'd like to cover both, but I can't be in two places at once. I think I'll sort of we'll have a team that will cover both. I will certainly make sure of that. And now they're going back to the Trumpet of Patriots. So the reason that they'll get 2% is because there's all the ads on TV, internet, and the billboards. And I would say that those who watch an ad and attracted to voting for Trump of Patriots would probably take their how to vote card. If they do have people on the booths, they're most likely to be paid to be there. I remember that was the case in 2013 at the booth that I was at. The Palmer United Party how to vote card person was paid to be there. Tristan Davis says, any events in Sydney? Well, there is going to be a freedom rally in Sydney as well. So it's going to be at Fairfield City Leisure Centre. That is in the southwest of Sydney, I believe. Fairfield. That's I think in the seat of Fowler, where Di Lee is the local member. There's going to be also one in Adelaide, Fremont Park. There's not one in Brisbane, though Brisbane has their Cherish Life, pro-life rally that day as well. Now, last week there was a disendorsement from one of the minor parties by Family First. So its candidate for Longman, Malachi Brogden Hearn, so Longman is in northern suburbs of Brisbane, was disendorsed for saying that on his X account in response to a story about Matilda's player Tamika Yellup and wife Kirsty announcing they're expecting second child. He posted, two women cannot and should not raise children. Lesbianism is disgusting. A post saying Australia was built solely by white Christian men, and at least they're white, and responding to South Australian police hiring UK-based officers. A post saying white people need to start breeding like rabbits. So Lyle Shelton said on the 6 News minor party senators debate, said, we're a family party, believe in morality. This particular individual had some social media commentary that he didn't disclose to us, so he hadn't been honest on his pre-selection form. You're basically supposed to print out your social media history to Family First Party. Shelton said there were other social media posts saying that women who have abortions are degenerate. I don't agree with that. And this sort of commentary by somebody who frankly should have known better is not acceptable in our party. It's not about cancel culture, it's about ensuring we uphold the values of our party. I think he was mainly endorsed because of his pro-white social media posts. And Family First, well, it is a multiracial party. Obviously, it supports Australia remaining a Christian nation, but they obviously would have I haven't looked through all of their 100 candidates, but there would be some non-white ones. And I know the Australian Christian Lobby, the Victorian director, which Lyle Shelton used to work for, is an Asian. I'm not sure if I can't remember her name. I'm not sure if she's Chinese or Vietnamese. Now, let's go over to the United States, where we've had published on the whitehouse.gov and also on a lot of the US government's coronavirus COVID websites now, the origins of COVID-19 lab leak, which is, it's sent obviously the scientific establishment that Trump has blown out of the US deep state. Because remember, it wasn't just, so remember that the US government, through the NIH, National Institutes of Health, funded gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Both the first Trump administration, the Biden administration, and the UK government scientific advisor, Chris Whitty, all believed it was a lab leak, but Chris Whitty wanted to cover it up because he's worried about funding for science. So this is incredibly important that this is on an official US government website. So I think there's only a few holdouts in the scientific community now who still claim that it came from organically from the bat. But remember how there were so many CCP simps back in 2020. Probably they were simps for the CCP because they loved their draconian lockdowns, which of course were exported to the West. So it was racist to say that it came from the wet market, the bat suit, that was racist, and also to say it came from the Wuhan Institute of Virology, that was also racist as well. So basically the only non-racist origin of COVID that was acceptable to say was what the CCP said, that it came from frozen food from the United States. That's what the CCP said. Now, Donald Trump, it was actually on Good Friday, the US Supreme Court gave out an emergency ruling which halted the deportation of illegal immigrants from Venezuela held in Texas. Because they didn't have an opportunity for a judicial review. So the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision, 7-2 decision, which included all of the Trump justices, so Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett, voted with the Liberal justices, 7-2 decision, along with the Chief Justice John Roberts. So only the two justices that dissented, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. Alito was appointed by George W. Bush, and Clarence Thomas by George H.W. Bush. So Trump, the three justices that Trump nominated, as I mentioned before, they're all given to him by the Federalist Society, and they all ruled, along with John Roberts, said that they're apparently going to give more information, the Supreme Court. So this order, it doesn't reverse the prior decision, which said that that was a 5-4 decision with Amy Coney Barrett joining with the three female Liberal justices, I should say. So it was 5 dudes and and the 4 women. So that was when the Supreme Court vacated the lower court order by US District Judge James Boasberg that had blocked Trump's use of the Alien Enemy Act to deport Venezuelan gang members, those part of the Tren Den Aguen gang. Now, the US Supreme Court, they unanimously ruled that the Trump administration has to facilitate the repatriation to the United States of this illegal immigrant from El Salvador, who it is claimed by his wife that he beat that he is not an MS-13 member, even though he has a tattoo. So he's a violent criminal. But you had one of the Democrat politicians visit him over in El Salvador. Absolutely mind-blowing stuff. Senator Slayer says, Tim used to be MS-13. I don't have any tattoos on anywhere on my body. And this is, I think, a lesson for any person in the United States, any guest in the United States. I'm not going to give illegal immigrants free advice because they should all be deported, is do not get any tattoos because they could have different interpretations. So, Senator Slayer, I know that you have tattoos. One of yours could be interpreted as having some sort of meaning, a nefarious meaning to some bad people, bad organizations. So I think you should be worried about any of your tattoos. And also, I think Blair Cottrell has a tattoo as well on his arm. So again, don't get tattoos, I think is the lesson here. Now let's go over to the UK, where Ordering Australia says, Tim, like, seriously, fuck American BS news. Well, I don't spend much time on it, seriously. Senator Slayer says I have a swastika tattoo. I didn't know it. I didn't know that. I know that Jimone Roberts has a swastika tattoo on his chest, like an American History X. It's not illegal in Victoria, a swastika tattoo, because that's not covered by the swastika ban. He's probably just trolling Senator Slayer. Now, over in the UK, its Supreme Court, it made a hugely significant decision in For Women Scotland versus the Scottish ministers. So the Scottish government had decided, enacted that trans women and trans men with gender recognition certificates were counted as women and men respectively, the same as biological men. Now, the UK Supreme Court, which is the highest court in the United Kingdom now, it's no longer the Privy Council, ruled that, so this relates to the Equalities Act of 2010. So this was the court's unanimous decision.
The central question on this appeal is the meaning of the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010. Do those terms refer to biological women or biological sex? Or is a woman to be interpreted as extending to a trans woman with a gender recognition certificate? By that I mean a person born male who now possesses a gender recognition certificate amending her gender to female, and sex to be interpreted as including what I will refer to as certificated sex. The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex. But we counsel against reading this judgment as a triumph of one or more groups in our society at the expense of another. It is not. As I shall explain later in this hand-down speech, the Equality Act 2010 gives transgender people protection not only against discrimination through the protected characteristic of gender reassignment, but also against direct discrimination, indirect discrimination, and harassment in substance in their acquired gender. This is the application of the principle of discrimination by association. Those statutory protections are available to transgender people, whether or not they possess a gender recognition.
So there was huge celebrations by TERFs all across the United Kingdom. It's a term that they've embraced. So sometimes another term for them is gender critical feminists, but TERF is the one that is stuck, which stands for trans exclusionary radical feminists. A lot of them refer to the United Kingdom as TERF Island because that is where there has been the biggest backlash to transgenders being allowed to use single-sex spaces. And so the immediate consequences of this decision is that transgender sex offenders, violent criminals, they will be housed in the jail that corresponds with their biological sex. So no more transgender rapists in female prisons, and that transgender police officers will only be allowed to search members of their biological sex. So trans women in the police won't be able to search biological women. And also it means that all women's organizations in the United Kingdom will have the right to only allow biological women in their spaces. Now, of course, a women's organization can choose to allow trans women, and this is what should be the principle of freedom of association, is that you should be allowed to associate with who you choose to. This is why anti-discrimination laws, equality laws are anti-freedom. Auditing Australia says, bring that here like instantly. UK showing signs of sensibility on this topic. Bring legislation to Australia, get the freaks off our street. Well, the trans TIFA, they do not do their cause any benefit by allowing these militant and also these transgenders who have been in prison. There was one who said, I can't remember their name, but said smash TERFs in the fucking face. And so they had a protest on Saturday, emergency demo trans liberation at Parliament Square. That resulted in the statue of suffragette, Millicent Fawcett, being vandalized. The sign says courage calls to courage everywhere, and written on it is fag rights, love heart, for some reason. And is this because the TERFs have embraced these suffragette colours? So you don't even know, like, she's been dead for 100 years. Nobody has any possible way of knowing what her hypothetical views would be on trans women. So because the TERFs use the suffragette colours, you're just going to attack women's rights campaigners from the 19th and early 20th century. And then there was another hashtag that they've got is P for me. So this trans woman decided to pee in public with holding her penis. It's still funny to say that. Her penis. So yes, that was the response from the trans activists in the UK. Now, the Starmer government they have seen the writing on the wall, public opinion on this issue, and so the official response from the Starmer government was that they welcome the ruling, stating it brings clarity and confidence for women and service providers such as hospitals, refuges and sports clubs. A government spokesman said it emphasised that single-sex spaces are protected in law and will always be protected by this government. There is no way that they will be game enough to amend the Equalities Act to say that trans women are women. Keir Starmer said before the 2024 general election that some women have a penis. And the Scottish government, the First Minister John Swinney, stated that the Scottish government accepts the Supreme Court judgment and that emphasised that protecting the rights of all will underpin our actions moving forward. And the Scottish government, but a Scottish government spokesperson still defended the government's prior action, saying they acted in good faith based on guidance from the Equality and Human Rights Commission. They acknowledged the need to engage with the UK government and the EHRC to understand the ruling's full implication, and committed to ensuring Scotland remains an inclusive country. Yes, Nathan Swindon, you read it right. It says fag rights. And now in Australia, in Tickle versus Giggle, a federal court justice said that sex is changeable, in ruling that Sal Grover discriminated against trans woman Roxanne Tickle. Now, I know that some of the TERFs don't like the word trans woman, and they like to use trans-identified male to refer to biological sex, but a lot of this gender critical movement was about not having language police. So, in my view, trans women, by the very nature of the name, implies biological male, because if they're a woman, I just call them a woman, which they're not. They're trans women, which means by definition they're biological male. So Sal Grover had this Giggle app, which I've said sounds like one of the most inane apps that I've ever heard of, but I'm not the target audience, obviously. And so Roxanne Tickle wanted to join it, pass the facial recognition, which shows that facial recognition still can't assess biological gender. Then Sal Grover pretty much figured out that it was a biological male and kicked Roxanne Tickle out. Then it became a court case. Sal Grover's trying to appeal to the the full federal court. But what would be the most conclusive way to protect the rights of women is actually defining sex in the Sex Discrimination Act. Now, on the same day actually, before we go to the rest of the UK news, Peter Dutton, and again, this is a part of the reason why as things stand, look like he's going to lose the election. It's because he is not bold enough. The only bold policy that he's got is his nuclear policy, which he is not talking about anymore. And so Peter Dutton was asked about what his definition of a woman is in response to the UK Supreme Court's landmark ruling. Now, in Australia, this is what it's called being a persuasive precedent. We will see if it impacts the full federal court judgment, but this was what Peter Dutton said.
That's a matter, obviously, that's been before the British courts. I haven't seen the detail of the case, and it's not something that I think is front of minds at this election.
All he had to say, Peter Dutton, was the definition of a woman is adult human female, which is what Anthony Albanese has said. That's what he said at the last federal election. He also said that men can't get pregnant. And he also gave that answer to Piers Morgan when he was interviewed by him. Now, the other main bit of UK news was actually on the same day as the UK Supreme Court judgment on 4 Women in Scotland versus the Scottish ministers. And that was Tommy Robinson losing his appeal against his 18 months imprisonment sentence for contempt of court. Now, he'll only serve 9 months of that for pleading guilty. So, but it was interesting that the UK judiciary decided to rule on that the same day. So, giving the illusion that there was cause for optimism, that fairness was returning to the United Kingdom when in fact it hadn't. And of course, there's still all of the Southport political prisoners. Again, this is why when people like Joel Davis advocate for democratic accelerationism, and to be fair, back in the 2024 UK general election, I was of the view that the Tories needed to be punished. Not that I thought that Starmer would be any good, but the difference is in the UK, they have the first past the post system, where you can only put a 1 in front of the party. So a lot of the Conservatives, like Peter Hitchens, were saying a vote for Reform is a wasted vote, it's a vote for Labor. So it's a different voting system over there. But the fact I didn't think, like, I probably should have suspected Starmer would be as bad as he did. But the thing is, when you advocate for something like democratic accelerationism, it's easy to advocate for online, but we see real life political prisoners over in the UK from this in the aftermath of the Southport outrage. And we've seen Donald Trump said there's going to be no trade deal with the UK unless it protects free speech. Now, I'm going to just say something here that could be totally contradictory. I don't think whether it be that any country can tell another country how they should govern themselves. Obviously, I think the UK is a dystopian surveillance police state, but the US administration, whether it be the Trump administration or another administration, trying to put pressure on a foreign government to change its policies, laws, is wrong. It's interfering with another sovereign nation. It's wrong whether it is the UK or if whether it's Iraq. Now, my advice would be to Brits who, as Indigenous Brits who are seeing their rights continue to evaporate, come migrate to Australia. You are certainly migrants who would instantly assimilate here. And I am noticing when I'm out and about in just my area, city of Frankston, I'm noticing more and more British and also Irish accents. And so we are getting a lot of British migrants, Indigenous migrants here to Australia. Brett Norman says, the UK has nothing left to trade but illegal boat migrants. They don't manufacture anything. Tristan Chase says, poor old Tommy, the UK left have the biggest hard-on for him that I don't think will ever subside. Now, there's also been there's been no official reports of this, but it's been circulating on X. This so-called alleged CCTV footage of Keir Starmer kissing Lord Ali, his sugar daddy, who has given him all these free gifts, clothes, and spectacles, and stayed at Lord Ali's London penthouse, and in fact did COVID lockdown press conferences from Lord Ali's house, someone else's house, while he was telling everyone to stay at home in their houses. And it seemed to be, now Lord Ali is a gay Muslim, was made a member of the House of Lords by Tony Blair. Again, that's quite a contradiction, a gay Muslim. And a lot of people speculated, could there be a sexual relationship between Keir Starmer and Lord Ali? Well, there is this CCTV footage, which some are saying is fake, of them kissing. And apparently, rumour is that Keir Starmer's wife, Victoria Starmer, has consulted divorce lawyers. Now, thing about the rich and the famous in the UK, they're able to obtain super injunctions to stop the press talking about things, but that doesn't stop online chatter. And I don't think these super injunctions apply to me discussing them in Australia. Brett Norman says Jimmy Savile fixed it for them. Well, Keir certainly fixed it for Jimmy Savile when he was Director of Public Prosecutions, and under his directorship did not prosecute Jimmy Savile while he was alive. There's also this photo, I'm not sure if it's authenticity, that shows Jimmy Savile on Jim Will Fix It with a young boy who looks like Keir Starmer, alluding apparently their relationship goes back to Keir Starmer's childhood. Though I should stress that Jimmy Savile raped little girls, not boys. Now, also, while everyone is distracted by Pope Francis's death, now the speculation is about who will be elected his successor. Will it be another woke pope? The Pope Francis was a Jesuit, which is basically an SJW priest. So that will be, there'll be a frenzy of speculation. I wonder if there'll even be a sports bet, a table on it, even though obviously the Catholic Church has its views on gambling. Now, Klaus Schwab has resigned as head of the World Economic Forum. I believe that Tony Blair, the former British Prime Minister, is going to be his successor. When I saw the news, I was hopeful for a moment that he died. I also hope that George Soros doesn't have much long to live either, but certainly George Soros, his evil deeds will continue to be carried out by his son, Alex Soros, who's engaged to Uma Aberdeen, Anthony Weiner's ex-wife. Tristan Chase says, I have seen screenshot from the CCTV footage. It's black and white, clear, but hard to tell if it's the Starmer bot 3000 or not. Yes, but we won't hear anything from the British mainstream media, I don't think, even from official sources saying it's a deep fake, because there could be some super injunction. All right, thank you so much for your company once again on Tim's News Explosion. So there'll be one more Tim's News Explosion before Election Day. And of course, there is going to be an Unshackled Election Night live stream from 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. When the polls closed on the East Coast, we'll have an all-star panel that will be on the Unshackled's channels. And now I will be speaking this Thursday to another Victorian Senate candidate on Wilms front, Jordan Diffloff, who leads Victorian Senate candidate for the Libertarians. So I've interviewed so far Bernie Finn from Family First, and last week Warren Pickering from One Nation. And I also hope that I haven't reached out to him yet, but I intend to. Chris Neal, the candidate for Jared Rennick's People First in Victoria. Now, in New South Wales, there is a joint ticket. So there is some good minor party, Freedom Party cooperation between the Freedom Parties in New South Wales, a joint Australia First alliance ticket between the Libertarians, People First, and the Heart Party, led by Craig Kelly, of a lead candidate for the Libertarian Party of New South Wales. And in Queensland, People First has got a joint ticket with Katter's Australian Party. So there has been significant progress. Now, of course, as I mentioned, the Freedom community is getting together in Melbourne at Flagstaff Gardens midday, Saturday, April 26th. And there's also, at the same time, Sydney, a Freedom rally, Fairfield City Leisure Centre, and in Adelaide, Fremont Park, 10 a.m. Also in Melbourne, there's the Let Women Speak rally at the same time, Parliament House, 12 p.m. Saturday, April 26th. I recommend, if you're attending that one, to bring earplugs because they will bring speakers, trans Tifa, to try and drown everyone out. Now, remember, I cannot do this show without your support. So please consider supporting the work of the Unshackled, and including my Unshackled Productions, Tim's News Explosion, and Wilms Front, by taking out a premium membership on the unshackled.net. So you can, we've got bronze $5 per month, silver $10 per month, gold $25 per year, platinum $50 per year, or a yearly membership $50 per year, $100 per year, gold $250 per year, platinum $500 per year. You can also now use the unshackled.net for our articles still, but it's over on Substack, which our Unshackled Productions archive is now, and where I email alerts for upcoming Unshackled Productions like Tim's News Explosion tonight. So you can support us there on Substack. So the unshackled.substack.com/subscribe. So you can pay at a monthly $5 per month, annual $50 per year, founding member $500 per year, or you can sign up for free just to make sure you're on our emailing list. Other ways to make sure you never miss an Unshackled production is to click the bell for allow notifications. Make sure you subscribe to Wilms Front and the Unshackled channels, and also helps if you just give a like, thumbs up, comment below, smash the like button, and also share, help get the word out. I certainly like how Iron Duke 99 shares it on his Anglosphere Discord group every week. I haven't seen him in the chat for a while, but he's certainly sharing far and wide. So thank you very much for that. And now I published a fresh report from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft yesterday. And so I recorded some fresh reports from Tiger Mountain with him, and Richard Wollstonecroft is also going to be part of our election night coverage. Now, Richard Wollstonecroft is also a regular contributor to Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious podcast. It's worth checking out the most recent You Cannot Be Serious podcast. It's available as a video form on Sam Newman's You Cannot Be Serious YouTube channel. For the first 7 minutes, Sam Newman ambushes Richard, who he calls Dick from Muff, saying that even though Richard's been on his show for the past 18 months, he said, it's taken a while for me to cotton on, but you've just been using me to promote yourself and your festival, and to get me to interview your friends who get me into trouble and get written up in the newspapers. So Richard most recently had Paul Motor, a fellow director, in the studio to talk about the WASP files, the Port Arthur massacre, suggesting that Martin Bryant was a patsy, and it wasn't. And also, he's even though it was Sam who put out there that he wanted to interview Thomas Sewell, he basically asked Richard, did you set up for Blair Cottrell to come with Thomas Sewell as well, which was not the truth at all. It was Sam who was given Tom's number by somebody else, not by Richard Wollstonecraft. And so how could Richard know that Blair Cottrell was going to be there? And because remember, Sam Newman, he called Blair an interloper, and called him a parasite, trying to link him to the National Socialist Network through sharing that video of him from the Footy Show. So Sam Newman went full character assassination against Blair. So I've shared the link to Sam Newman's interview with Richard. Richard's already got many supportive comments in the chat. So I think that a few more would do him good, because certainly would like to see Richard continue on Sam's "You Cannot Be Serious," because, well, Richard helped Sam out during the US election, being he is a Trump expert. So he provides a lot of news for Sam to give his 2 cents in as well. Nathan Swindon says Sam is a base schizo. Well, he's 79 years old, and he's basically a cripple now. You can't see it on his video podcast because it's from the waist up, like I am here. He's actually had like surgeries on his foot and his knee, and so he's had several stays in hospitals. He's had his a foot in a moon boot for many weeks. He has a disabled sticker now when he goes to the shop, so he hasn't been driving with much. So his not girlfriend, Sue Stanley OAM, is not only assisting him with the podcast now, but also being his full-time carer as well. So yes, although he's looking healthy above the waist, Sam, he's actually, he's had a lot of recent operations on his foot. All right, so that is the end of Tim's News Explosion for another week. So we've got Anzac Day coming up on Friday, lest we forget. So certainly it is a solemn day, and so certainly there will be a lot of you who are going to be attending dawn services. I remember the National Socialist Network can't. They are banned from the Shrine of Remembrance. So lest we forget, and I will see you this Thursday on Anzac Eve for Wilms Front with Jordan Diffloff, the Libertarian candidate. Until then, stay safe, stay sane, stay optimistic. Good night.
Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.